Today is July 6th, and this is 2 days after the departure of Bhakti Charu Swami. So I decided I want to talk about what was deeply in his heart and what deeply concerned him. It was that he didn't feel that Prabhupada was the center of ISKCON, and he felt that the position of the Diksha Guru had eclipsed two things. One, Prabhupada being the center of focus and attention, primary center of focus and attention. Center, we do Guru Puja every day. We read his books. He didn't mean it that way. He meant it in every sphere, on every level, where we get our instruction, where we feel our strongest connection, how we understand how we're being liberated, and that everything is from Prabhupada. Everyone else is just bringing you to Prabhupada. Everyone else is little. Prabhupada's the sun, we're a little ray. He felt that was being eclipsed, and as many devotees do. But it was of extreme concern to him. It actually bothered him. I would say it bothered him 24/7. He talked about it so much. Because he felt that if Prabhupada doesn't actually become the center in everyone's life and heart, that in future generations, Prabhupada's position, Prabhupada's teachings, everything about Prabhupada is going to be lost. And other gurus, other acharyas will dominate the landscape of ISKCON, and Prabhupada will be sidelined. And this, you might think, no, that's not going to happen. No, it's a real concern. And many senior devotees are very concerned about this. And he is at the helm of this concern. And if you ever hear him talk about staying in ISKCON, staying with Prabhupada, Prabhupada in the center, it's all being generated from this concern. Now, let me explain why this concern is there for those of you who joined ISKCON after Prabhupada left. When Prabhupada was here, of course, there was only one guru. So I just want to give you a picture of the landscape of ISKCON when Prabhupada was here. Very, very rare there would be a recording of any lecture by anybody other than Prabhupada. And that meant it was very rare for anyone to hear any other lecture other than Prabhupada's, because there weren't any, and if there were, not that many people would be that interested. And it wasn't, let's say I recorded a lecture and people said, hey, that's a nice lecture, can I hear it? It would go around, but there was no digital media, so you'd have to actually get a tape, and you'd have to copy that tape to another tape. So it'd be like next generation, by the third, fourth generation of cassette recorders. You're copying it through speakers, not, generally, at least at some point, not that you'd have copy machines. And even if you had copy machines, every generation degraded, so that it just wasn't a good facility. Whereas with Prabhupada, we had a whole ministry. And so all the tape ministries came after Prabhupada left, when the gurus had their own tape ministries. So during Prabhupada's time, I rarely remember ever hearing recorded lectures of anyone, just because they weren't available. And there wasn't a great interest in hearing them. We had Prabhupada's time. Prabhupada was lecturing every day. And there was a tape ministry. So everywhere you go, everywhere in ISKCON, in everyone's cassette player, in everyone's Walkman, in every temple, were lectures of Prabhupada. Now there were kirtans. You had Vishnu Jan Swami kirtans. You had a few albums devotees made, Radha Krishna, like that. But that, I would say, was probably, maybe there were like 4 other recordings, 5 maximum other recordings of other devotees, and we had numerous recordings of Prabhupada. So generally in any temple you would go to, you would hear kirtans, bhajans of Prabhupada. So kirtans, bhajans of Prabhupada. Naturally, he was our guru. That's what we wanted to listen to. Lectures of Prabhupada, morning walk conversations, room conversations. That's what everyone was listening to. And all the news that we were getting was about who? About what? Where is Prabhupada? What is he doing? What is he saying? That was ISKCON up to the time Prabhupada left. So there was no question of keeping Prabhupada in the center. You didn't have to keep him. He was the center. We're all his disciples. He was the center of our life. There was no competition that somebody else is in some way kind of dominating the attention of the devotees. I mean, there were devotees who were powerful, who were attractive. We liked listening to their kirtans. But it was just sun rays in comparison to Prabhupada, because we all saw them as just little rays of Prabhupada, and nothing in comparison to Prabhupada. So there's no question that they could ever eclipse Prabhupada or ever sidelight Prabhupada. It wouldn't happen. Prabhupada was the only guru. There were no other gurus. So, and some devotees have asked me to describe this history. So it wasn't my intention to describe this history, but in order to express what I feel Bhakti Charu Swami wants the world of ISKCON to understand deeply, and what he dedicated his life to live and explain, I have to explain a little bit of this history. So we had the idea that Srila Prabhupada, as Acharya, whatever he does, we should copy. He's teaching us how to live by his example. So then we thought, or not everybody thought, but those who seem to be moving ISKCON, making the decisions for the international ISKCON, locally and internationally, thought, if now we have 11 new gurus, they need to do what Prabhupada did, because Prabhupada set the example. So what did Prabhupada do? Every day he had Guru Puja, he had his own rooms, he had his own cooks, he had his own seats, he had his own car, and everything that we could do in our power to facilitate Prabhupada's service, to make his life comfortable, we would do. And so that was the philosophy. So now, instead of Prabhupada being the center, the new gurus who were now following in Prabhupada's footsteps, not all of them thought this, but the movement was pushing that this is how it should be done. So they convinced them all to do it. Some, I would say most of them bought into it, but some didn't. It felt very awkward and wrong. But this is what the movement did, and this was the ignorance. And they thought, Prabhupada is gone, there's an absence, we need to replace him, and we will replace him with these new acharyas. And we thought, because Prabhupada appointed them, he transferred his Shakti, so now they were all way above everybody else. There was a lot of confusion. We didn't understand. We thought, Prabhupada made these people gurus because they're pure devotees. He gave him his Shakti. We need to now replace Prabhupada in some way with them. And let me try to explain psychologically what I think was happening. I think the loss was so deep that we needed someone to sit on a Vyasasana who we could honor and worship, because we didn't feel we could exist without Prabhupada. So we thought, well, we'll put someone else up there. He'll be the guru. And even for us as godbrothers, he'll be strength for us. And even some of the godbrothers started saying, well, now if you want to be connected with Prabhupada, you have to be connected with me. You have to work with me. You have to worship me. It got very, very crazy. So let me tell you my personal experience of this. I remember one devotee, that I was in Los Angeles when Prabhupada left, and one devotee was pushing. These new gurus, they're pure devotees. We have to worship them like Prabhupada. This is what the Shastra, and then you read in the Shastra what it says about the pure devotee. How he's non-different from Krishna, worshipped as God. So we were just trying to follow the Shastra with them. So I remember when they built a Vyasasana, there was a permanent Vyasasana for the guru. So if you were a guru and you went to a temple, you did not sit on the seat of the Bhagavatam speaker. You sat on a Vyasasana that was almost as big as Prabhupada's. And like some temples you'll go to now, you'll see in South Africa, in Dallas, you'll see Prabhupada's Vyasasana, then you'll see another asana. But on the other asana, they'll have Tulsi or book display. And it's the same height, or it's like that much of that guru, who was the acharya of that zone. Because in those days, there was only one guru in that zone, and everyone who came became that person's disciple. And if they didn't want to be that person's disciple, there was a little subtle, maybe not such subtle pressure, like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you accept him? He's the guru. So the first time this guru in Los Angeles, Rameshwar Maharaj at that time, who was not into this, he was not into this at all. He was one of the most practical people. He just wanted to serve Prabhupada, and he was willing to do, he'd sit on a bed of nails if that would please Prabhupada. So he was not into seats. He didn't like it. He felt uncomfortable being honored and worshipped. He really did. But he was forced into it because that was prevailing ethos. And they wouldn't let him. He tried to throw out the seat, and the GBC came to him and said, you can't do this, because it would disrupt the whole ethos that's going on with the other GBC. I was in the meeting with him, because I was one of the leaders of it. I was in the meeting with him with about 5 other GBC men who said, you cannot do this. And he's saying, but there's no history outside of Prabhupada taking Guru Puja daily. There's no history in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Everybody sits on the same seat. Nobody has an exalted seat. No, this is Prabhupada. He set the example. He's the acharya. So there's like so much confusion. And so the first day that Rameshwar Prabhu sat on that Vyasasana, there was this intense feeling coming over me. This does not feel right. There is something terribly wrong with this. But at that point, because of the pressure that they're pure devotees, Prabhupada's the acharya, you have to do the guru, you have to be a guru as a guru. There was so much of that coming, I couldn't process that feeling. But I'm sure many, many devotees at that time had this same gut intuition. This does not feel right. There's something wrong with this. And what started happening in ISKCON, there was a shift from focus on Prabhupada to focus on the present guru, who was a zonal guru, who we call Acharya. We gave them names, Vishnupad, Acharya Dev, Acharya Pad, like that. They all had, it was like the whole 9 yards. Like Prabhupada was called Prabhupada. Prabhupada was not his initiated name. That was a title that was given to him as our guru. Actually, he had to tell us to give it to him, but that was our ignorance. So they had titles, they had very, very opulent quarters, just like Prabhupada, like amazingly opulent. And in many cases, they had more, their quarters were nicer than Prabhupada's. And their Vyas Pujas started being nicer than Prabhupada's. Everything started shifting, and this created this huge alienation, because then the God Brothers, many of them started feeling like, this is not the movement I joined, that was Prabhupada-centric, now it's this guru-centric. And so this alienation that I felt on the first day that he said on Vyasasana, it just continued. And so you had devotees who were being alienated, then you had other devotees who were saying, no, this is the way it's supposed to be, this is good. There were a lot of good results. A lot of people were inspired, the ones who liked them. He had a lot of power. He could do a lot of things. He had a lot of disciples. Easy for the disciples. One guru. And you probably know the history, but one by one, gurus started having trouble because they had usurped their position. They were imitating Prabhupada. And Shastra says, if you imitate the great devotees, it's like drinking poison. Of the 11, I think 7 had fallen away due to either not being able to maintain strictly the principles, or maybe you could say not being able to maintain, in a broader sense, strictness. They just couldn't maintain their position. They had either fallen down, breaking one of the regular principles, or come close to it, or being challenged to do it. They just couldn't maintain the position because it was not the position Prabhupada intended. He climaxed around 1986, and the God Brothers had formed practically a revolution. There were various revolutions going on to reform this, guru reform, and There was a meeting in New Vrindavan I participated in. It was like a historical meeting at the time. And the God brothers just spoke out and said, "This is nonsense. You're imitating Prabhupada. This is wrong. You're destroying the movement. You've eclipsed Prabhupada. You've pushed him out." Let me tell you something. This is going to sound strange to you, but it'll help put this in perspective. It must have been 1982, I went to South Africa to raise money. I was president of Mauritius, and there was no money in Mauritius. It was a very poor country. At that time, South Africa was one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And I had just been living in South Africa the year before. So I knew where to go. I knew how to collect. So we could collect in a month more money than we'd make at Mauritius in a year. And we can buy so many things we need. And I wanted to start a festival program. We can buy all what we need, sound system, this and that. So we went there, and this devotee is a disciple of Rameshwar. And this devotee, when we get in the cars, is playing lectures of Rameshwar, kirtans of Rameshwar, kirtans of other devotees. And I'd never actually been in that close proximity with a disciple of the new gurus, because for us, it was just, well, we would just listen to Prabhupada. That was like normal. We just listened to Prabhupada. That's how we grew up. That's all you listen to. And there were no other books, or very few other books, so there were no other books to read but Prabhupada's books. And this devotees, I turn to this devotee, I say, "Do you ever listen to Prabhupada?" And the devotee says, "No, I don't." And this devotee was shocked, like, "Oh, I never thought of that," or "We don't do that." And that made a deep impression that there's a serious problem here. Now you might say, "But Prabhu, that's the way it is in ISKCON now. That's just normal." Yeah, that's a normal, serious problem. That's how we as leaders and God brothers, and even as gurus, although we're gurus and we give lectures and you listen to them, and we'll even say, "Please listen to that lecture that I gave, it's really important." And you're thinking, why do you give a lecture every day if you want us to hear Prabhupada? Well, because this is what Prabhupada wanted us to do. But he didn't want us to eclipse him. He didn't want us to write books to eclipse his books, to give lectures to eclipse his lectures. So I'm just giving you my perspective as a Prabhupada disciple who came to ISKCON in 1969, and seeing this shift, it was like, this is unprecedented. There was never a time in ISKCON history where it wasn't just Prabhupada. His books, his kirtans, his words. And you might say, well, today, it can't be that way. And that's true, but it's gone overboard in the other direction. It has to be that way sufficiently. Like, you have to listen to Prabhupada's lectures sufficiently. You have to listen to his bhajan. You have to have sufficient, because he's the center. And then the other problem was that the disciples were thinking their guru was on the level of Prabhupada. They weren't really making a distinction. Liberated, if Prabhupada made a person a guru, they're starting to think all these 11 gurus descended, even though they were all hippies. They didn't know that was just their leela. They just, it was like distorted. They're all descended, transcendental. And if that's the case, you could understand it. Easy to eclipse Prabhupada's. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that they were eclipsing Prabhupada. The focus was going away from Prabhupada. And therefore, you could say, but you can't eclipse Prabhupada. But you can't eclipse, when you shine the light on someone else, you're eclipsing. Prabhupada is eternally self-effulgent, but we're not seeing that so much because the light's being shown on these other people. And everyone around 1986 and the 80s was feeling this. We made a huge mistake in having these people imitate Prabhupada. And basically, it's like the whole movement is centering around these 11 people. And they yield all the power. They have all the resources. They have all the men, the money, the control. And it's like, what happened to ISKCON, where Prabhupada was in the center, where resources were distributed equally, no one had specific powers, everything was managed by a GBC. Now these gurus were like unmanageable. They had whole zones and powers of GBC. How could they control them? So then there was this whole guru reform movement, and with temple presidents, and then finally GBCs were interrogated, gurus were interrogated. What are you doing? But things have gotten better, but still to this day, the vestiges of that have not been removed, even for new devotees who become gurus. Although the newer devotees who become gurus, they grew up through that and they're more conscious not to do that. But still, within the culture, many of us are enough Prabhupada in the center. The devotees are just not understanding Prabhupada's mood and mission. One new devotee I had met in Mayapur, and she stayed in Mayapur because of lockdown, and she I think I read Prabhupada's Gita twice, and now she was studying something at MIT or somewhere. 10th Canto commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, something like that. So these kinds of things, you go into the marketplace and there are books you can read that Prabhupada told us don't read these books. It's such a different landscape. I have disciples, and I'll quote a verse which every Bhakta knew in 1970, and they don't know it. I'm like, how could you not know that verse? It means there's a different mood now. We had a mood of learning verses. The mood changed. So this is a concern. So this was Bhakti Charu Swami's concern. And this is what he said. This is what he felt. I want to explain this to you. He said, I feel insignificant. I'm paraphrasing. I feel like I am nothing. I'm insignificant. My only credibility is that I'm connected to Prabhupada. Then here's the important thing, the point he made. He said, I am not taking my disciples back to Godhead. Prabhupada is taking them back to Godhead. I am bringing them to Prabhupada. Prabhupada is doing everything, and I am bringing them to Prabhupada. And he said, I don't feel that within ISKCON, this culture, this is the culture in the heart and mind of the disciples and the devotees. Even maybe in some of the gurus may not feel it. They think, I'm doing it, by Prabhupada's mercy, but I'm doing it. You come through me, I will liberate you, I will bless you. And so he feels that we have a culture in ISKCON that if it doesn't change, if we don't recognize that it's Prabhupada's movement, it's Prabhupada's teachings, it's Prabhupada's power, we're nothing. We're all useless without that. It's all him. If that is not instilled within the heart of every single member, his fear, and rightly so, is that in the future, Prabhupada will become like a second-class citizen. He just won't be that important. He won't be that central. There'll be other people who will rise to prominence. We want gurus to rise to prominence, but not at the cost of minimizing the reality that all the potency that they have is Prabhupada's potency, and that everyone should understand it. Now, the problem that I see is that when Bhakti Charu Swami said this, he was accused of being a Ritvik, because what he was saying was very similar to what the Ritviks are saying, that Prabhupada's being pushed to the side, he's being eclipsed by the gurus, we lost that Prabhupada-centric culture, and so forth. So I take that as a great glorification, not as a criticism. Because the fact is, the Ritvik philosophy just went a little bit too far. That Prabhupada will be your guru because the other gurus, they did a bad job. So let's just get rid of them. That's not Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta. The Gaudiya Vaishnava Siddhanta is the other gurus will represent Prabhupada. They will bring you closer to Prabhupada. They will put the glasses on you so you see Prabhupada better. That's the mood of the guru. That if I can help you get closer to Prabhupada, if I can help you deepen your relationship with Prabhupada, if I can put the glasses on you to help you see better who Prabhupada is, what he's teaching, what he wants, what his mission is, what his heart is, where he wants his movement to be, how you could become a better member of that movement and help him. If I can do that, then I've done my job as guru. If I do anything else and make you think I am someone special, independent of Prabhupada, it is disservice. Now, you might say, well, the gurus aren't doing that, but the problem is we have a culture in which it makes the disciple think when the guru says that, he's just being humble, and he doesn't really mean it. That's just, oh, every guru thinks they're nothing at the feet of their guru. Prabhupada said he was nothing at the feet of Bhaktisiddhanta. But yes, that's true, but this is different because this is a fact. Prabhupada was definitely something before he met his guru. He was a Vaishnava. He was definitely something. And by the power of his guru, he was able to spread Krishna consciousness. No doubt, and no doubt Prabhupada would feel like nothing. But he wasn't nothing before he met his guru. And Prabhupada said, in my life, I never committed any sin. There was never a time when I did not think of Krishna. I'll get to your comments in a minute. There are two books he said not to read. Govinda Lilamrita. Bhaktisiddhanta said don't read. Govinda Lilamrita is one of them. There's one more I'll remember. But I was not born a Vaishnava. There was a time I forgot Krishna. I have not followed all the entire life. So there is a difference. And I'm probably not someone who could have come to America alone. Yeah, so there is a difference. And every guru will note that difference, and every guru feels that difference. The problem is in ISKCON, because of that zonal culture that we had in 1977 when Prabhupada left, the remnants of that culture still, the fragrance of that, or they say the odor of that culture, is still permeates to some subtle degree ISKCON. And it's become a challenge for gurus to communicate that we are nothing and Prabhupada is everything, and we're just trying to help you get to Prabhupada in an environment where the guru position is so dominant. Now, here's where the problem lies, and ISKCON has been trying to educate devotees in this area, and it's been really challenging. And it's the area of Siksha Guru versus Diksha Guru. Because in Gaudiya Vaishnava history, all emphasis was not given on Diksha. Emphasis was given on Guru. And Guru could mean Siksha Guru, Diksha Guru could mean Bhartma Pradarshika Guru. So, in ISKCON, as we see, okay, let's go back to history, right? This is a real story in my life. I'm working with a disciple of Rameshwar. We're working very closely. He's very close with me. He respects me, so maybe at that time I might have been a devotee 10, 15 years, and he's a new devotee. So there's some difference, in what I can teach him. He respects that. At that time, we as godbrothers were challenging the authority of these gurus. And there was a lot of rhetoric going on for those who were challenging. We were challenging out of sincerity, out of fear that the movement would be destroyed or corrupted or in some way fall into disarray. And many of us were called black snakes in order for the guru to protect his disciples. Ramanath Prabhu, that's incorrect, and I'd appreciate that you don't make any comments against Bhakti Charu Swami. It's inappropriate. And there are Govindam Lila Rita and one other book, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said. He asked, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta asked, can I publish these books? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, you can publish for yourself, because no one can understand and read them. So, it's not a crime to read others' books. It's not a crime to read others' books, but one has to be qualified. And in discussions when they talked about this with Prabhupada, and they said, Prabhupada, did you say we shouldn't read other books? And Prabhupada said, no, I never said that. You should read them. And then another devotee said, but we should read your books first. And Prabhupada said, yes. I'm writing so many books, you read them. So yes, it's not a crime to read other books. The crime is you haven't read Prabhupada's books over and over and over again, and then you read other books, because then you may misunderstand them if you can't see them through the lens that Prabhupada has given. So that was the concern. Ujjvala Nilamani and Govinda Lilamrita. Those two books. Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to print, and Bhaktivinoda said, print one for yourself. One of Bhaktisiddhanta's senior-most disciples was asked about those books, talking about them, few sentences, and he said, I can't say more because I've never read them. If anyone was qualified to read them, it would be him, not us. And he did not read them because Bhaktisiddhanta did not allow anyone to read them. So that's just for the history. So, where did I leave off? I got too excited about your comments. So there was this concern that Maharaj had, is that the remnants, the odor from the zonal Acharya days, where it was predominance of one guru who was thought to be like amazingly transcendental and everything for the disciples, and now the new Prabhupada he felt that the remnants were still there. And so, so we're on the Siksha Diksha thing. So ISKCON has tried through the the disciple course. Srila Swami has wrote a book on Siksha. Bhakti Charu Swami has spoken about this. I think all the gurus have spoken about it. We are having a really difficult time educating devotees in ISKCON that Siksha Guru is non-different from Diksha. Diksha is not the only one prominent guru. Everything is Diksha. But Siksha is of equal importance. And in some cases, your Siksha Guru may be more important. And Prabhupada is your Siksha Guru, and you can have many Siksha Gurus, and you may have an even deeper relationship with your Siksha Guru than your Diksha Guru. And many times in Gaudiya Vaishnava history, you would get Diksha, you would get your mantras, and your Guru would say, okay, take training from this person. And you would be trained by another person, and that relationship with that other person was as close or closer than the relationship with your Diksha Guru. So in ISKCON, everything centered around Diksha. And once you become a Diksha Guru, you're like God. Now, there's a problem. And the problem is when you read the Shastra, it glorifies the position of Guru as good as God, etc., etc. So naturally, disciples will worship their Guru that way. But it never says Diksha Guru. It says Guru, which means Siksha Guru also. So I want all my disciples to become Guru. Also means Siksha Guru. See the Guru as good as God. Good as God means he's representing God. He's teaching what God is saying. See that his teachings are coming from God. That's Siksha Guru also. Honor your Gurus. Siksha Gurus also. So this devotee had the story where we're being called black snakes, right? So I started pointing out some defects in what this guru was doing. And it was at a point when this guru was actually, it wasn't just a philosophical, you've usurped Prabhupada's position, he was actually crumbling spiritually. And this devotee said to me, he said, you're so dear to me, if my guru criticizes you, I'll have to reject him. Or I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to deal with it. So because he saw me as a Siksha Guru. And so then there was this guru up here dominating, and we are training his disciples. We're bringing new people. Then they go to the Diksha Guru. The Diksha Guru predominates, and we are like nobody now. We're the ones who, we fed you we breastfed you in Krishna consciousness, and now you've been adopted by your Diksha Guru, and you are, we're neglected. But in his case, he didn't see it that way. fortunately. So that was a big concern. That was a big concern that those who were actually training and making devotees were then being minimized or put in a secondary position. Or sometimes this happens where someone wants to accept me as their guru and later on they change their mind, which happens. It's fine. It's not the fault of the disciple or the guru. And they say, can I accept so-and-so? Of course. And it's actually GBC resolution. You can't tell someone not to unless you think, they took LSD yesterday and that's why they made that decision, or someone had a gun at their head and said, you have to take from this guru. If there was some awkward situation, you might say, let's talk about it. Otherwise, you'd say, fine. But the problem is, this relationship, let's say in this example that they have with me, it may be for a year, and we may be working together, and I may have helped them. And then all of a sudden, they choose so-and-so, they want to take Diksha from so-and-so, for whatever reason. That's not the point of the discussion. And then the relationship with me, it's like it doesn't exist anymore. It's like it's gone. That's wrong. I mean, I can't control that. I'm not saying it's wrong because of me. It's wrong with anyone. That if you have that relationship, then why would you give it up just because you want to take Diksha from someone else? Because this person was also your guru. So when you change your mind to take initiation, it doesn't mean, oh, well, let's take that guru and we'll just, we'll put him in the dustbin. We don't need him. These kinds of things. And not recognizing that this Siksha guru of yours, because he doesn't carry a danda and have a big position, you think, well, I'll take initiation from someone else. I know, I have godbrothers who I have some godbrothers who I think are some of the most amazing devotees, and they're Diksha gurus. Me personally, I love them dearly. I think they're some of the most insightful devotees and some of the most well-qualified devotees to be gurus, and they hardly have any disciples because they don't have a profile. They felt like a handful of disciples, and it's like, this shows that there is a little problem here. It's a propaganda, marketing, branding issue done inadvertently, and it's built in the culture. You have a lot of followers, you're a sannyasi, you have a zone. It's like built, you're gonna, automatically, you're gonna be big. You're gonna have a lot of disciples. It's just gonna happen, And, everyone's gonna start, and all your disciples are gonna start saying, well, why don't you take from Guru Maharaj? Because everybody else is. And so there are parts of the world where 90% of the people are the disciple of one guru. And so these are the kinds of things that Maharaj is looking at and thinking, if this doesn't stop, if we don't change this culture, ISKCON will not make it, because we'll lose Prabhupada. And so his point is, ISKCON is Prabhupada. Prabhupada's taking everyone back to Godhead. It's Prabhupada's teachings that are purifying us. It's Prabhupada's everything. And as much as we can latch onto that, or as much as leaders we can represent that to our followers, to that degree we're successful because we transparently represented Prabhupada. I've given you Prabhupada. He will purify you, not me. He will purify you. And anything that I can do, and any purification you feel you're getting from me, it's just I'm giving you what he gave. It's not coming from me. He said, once we see that, then all the disciples, when they're getting mercy from their guru, they're realizing he's giving me Prabhupada's mercy, and they realize he's strengthening my connection now to Prabhupada. Now, in Sureshwar Prabhu's Founder Acharya series, he makes the point that your foundational relationship is with Prabhupada. That's where it starts, and your guru will help strengthen that relationship. It's not the other way around. Your foundational relationship is with your guru, and he'll help you strengthen it. He will help you strengthen it, but your foundational relationship is with Prabhupada, and your guru will help foster that relationship. That's a fundamental principle of his course, and that's how every guru feels, or at least how every guru should feel, and that's how every Siksha guru should feel, and that's how every preacher in ISKCON should feel, and that's how every devotee should feel. So what the GBC had decided years ago was that nobody who comes to ISKCON should choose anyone to be their Diksha Guru for 6 months. And those first 6 months, develop your relationship with Prabhupada. Now, you may be attached to a guru. Okay, he can be your Siksha Guru. But for those first 6 months, focus on Prabhupada as this is your guru. Develop that relationship. And then choose a guru who can help you develop that relationship. Not you just choose a guru because he's charismatic, or you like the way he chants, or you like the way he tells stories, or whatever. I'm not offending anybody. All our gurus are glorious. All our gurus are amazingly empowered. But the point is, you want to accept someone as a guru because you've connected to Prabhupada and you see this guru represents Prabhupada so transparently to you and connects you so deeply to Prabhupada. You want to be connected with him so you can be connected with Prabhupada. That's the culture we want to create. And I think you will realize that even though you may feel that way, not everybody feels that way. And that was Maharaj's concern. And one godbrother revealed to me that the day that Maharaj was leaving to come back to America to do this initiation and work on his project of cow protection, he called this godbrother who is involved in working within ISKCON to make changes on this level, and he called him and he expressed that. That's what's burdening his heart. So I think this is very significant that when Bhakti Charu Swami was coming to America, this thing was still burdening his heart. When he's leaving his body, this is what was burdening his heart, that Prabhupada's going to become a second-class citizen in ISKCON, or it has already become to some degree, and unless we change, we don't have a future. This is what was in his heart. And so every time you hear him talk about keep Prabhupada in the center, the position of Diksha, Siksha, and all that, that's where it's coming from, this huge concern. So now, when a great devotee leaves and we want to honor him, we're honoring him by talking about him, but I think the greatest thing we can do to honor him is create this culture in ISKCON, because that's what he wants and that's what he's living for. So, not just his disciples, but everybody, everyone in ISKCON, if you want to honor Bhakti Charu Swami, you want to help create this culture. And I would appreciate it if you all share this video, this class, as widely as possible, because I just want as many devotees as possible to know what was in his heart. Bhakti Charu Swami's disappearance is really inspiring a lot of devotees to think about what was important. And what was important to Maharaj, what was in his heart, we understand that's in Prabhupada's heart. I think we can make that assumption 100%. If it was in his heart is Prabhupada's heart. It's in Prabhupada's heart, and we have to take it. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being devotees in ISKCON, trying to help spread this movement and staying despite all the problems and difficulties we might face. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanand.